And if he does not, that there is a price to pay.
So what's the latest with the Ilhan Omar investment?
Well, let's have
what's
some
the latest
women
with
come.
Ilhan Omar and the anti-American statements? Is there any news with
There's
that?
no latest.
With her bigotry,
You've been speaking about.
I just want to have a woman question.
You've been speaking about the importance of the religious and faith-based communities, both in relation to ICE raids and understanding to appeal to their humanity. Who have been reaching out to? What has their reaction been, and where do they stand now that you have this 2-week deadline that you've been really reaching out on?
Well, I have been reaching out to some of the evangelical community who have been strong supporters of President Trump. And when we've talked to them in the past about babies being taken from the arms of their moms, families being divided, they have tried to weigh in, but given the president more the benefit of the doubt. In this case, I believe this is something quite different, because this sent a tremor of fear across the country. And on a Sunday, I mean, they said to me, on a Sunday when people of faith are going to church, they don't know what they're going to be going home to. And we all believe, those of us of faith believe that everybody has a spark of divinity, that we're all God's children, worthy of respect, and in America, immigrants have rights. So by dint of our humanity and by dint of our being in America, people deserve respect. And I had a more positive response from them about, not because I asked them to, but because of what the president was planning to do. And they may have had some influence on the president's decision as well. Now we have to keep that drumbeat going. The drumbeat going. What is the purpose of weighing in on people who may have a status violation? Would you like to speak to that, Congressman?
Well, as Speaker Pelosi mentioned, the importance of making sure that our families are kept together and are able to stay together. Immigrants contribute so much to this great economy, to this great country. Immigrants make up the majority of small businesses right here in Queens and in Elmhurst, and so we want to make sure that we are not doing anything to frighten people or to separate families. It's horrible to even imply that, whether you mean that, whether you have an imminent deadline or not. But we are here to make America stronger and to keep our families together.
Madam Speaker, there are two debates this week. There are two
I'm sorry.
Citizenship. Let's give female reporter a chance.
No. I've never even, it's not even a rumor that I have heard.
Why are you not revoking her clearance after the bigoted statement she's made, after her anti-Semitic statements?
I don't even know what
you know what happened
security
with Max
clearance
Rose
she
yesterday,
has.
right? Max Rose, there was a rally in
Let's
the
give Univision a chance.
Why are you not revoking her security?
Wonderful female,
She's
Ms.
already made
Casella.
statements in support of Iran. What are you waiting for, Madam
The
Speaker?
citizenship question, let's talk about that. I know the U.S. Supreme Court is expected to rule on this. What's your take on this? Do you think
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
Citizenship
question that
Oh, this is wrong. This is so completely and totally wrong. At the beginning of our country, there was never even a thought of asking a citizenship question, and that is when our Constitution was written. So this is something that has a terrible agenda. It's an agenda that has a political motive because they want to effect reapportionment, and they don't want people of color to count. It has a budget implication because they don't want to allocate resources to communities, whether it's education, health, whatever it is, because if you keep the number down, you keep the need for not the need, but the allocation of resources down. This is really insidious that they would put that citizenship question on there. It has a purpose that is not wholesome, not consistent with our Constitution, and really one that should not be there. And but we don't want them, whatever the court says, the court may say it can stay on there, but people must sign up, because if they don't, they will give a victory to just the people who don't want them to count.
And it's been shown. May I respond to her question, please? And so we found out during one of our hearings, and there are various testimonies where Secretary Ross lied about the inclusion of this census. Court documents showed that the origin of this question was political in nature, President Trump sent out a campaign email asking if people would love if he would include a citizenship question. The census is required by the Constitution to count all living persons, and so anything that would take away from that is not acceptable.
And I want to commend, excuse me, sorry.
Let's give someone else to join.
Congresswoman Mang has been, we're having this discussion in the Appropriations Committee now. Congresswoman Mang has been a champion in terms of insisting on the truth, insisting on a correct amount of money that we need for this. And in fact, when I go back to Washington, one of the things we'll be doing this week is to continue our conversation on the domestic caps. You've heard about the caps. We're having a fight about, we want the domestic caps to, the increase in domestic investment to be similar to what we're doing in defense in terms of the increase. And one of the region areas that we are fighting for is for an increased funding for census. The Democrats are fighting increased funding for census and increased funding for our veterans. Those are two of our priorities.
Openly state her hatred for America's troops. Why is she still on the committee?
I have a different question.
Ilhan Omar has openly said she hates America's troops. Why does she have security clearance?
It's nearly 2 years now since the Rohingya genocide began in Myanmar. There are reports that number of bills working there were through Congress, and Congress has been vocal on this issue. But as of now, nothing to happen, like sanction against Myanmar authorities, those involved the genocide. What is your position?
Well, let me just say that freedom of religion is something that we work in a bipartisan way in the Congress, Democrats and Republicans. That is something where we do have interest, and we have, we're very concerned about Muslims in China, maybe 2-3 million people in education camps in China, Muslims, the Uyghurs in Western China, what's happening in Myanmar and the rest. So again, that's something that a value that we share across the aisle and that we fight for, the freedom of religion.
And the advocates are still collecting co-sponsors.
Why does she still have security clearance? Again, nothing.